going to take advantage of having Helen here today to do one that she had mentioned earlier, and that was just some of the memories she has of growing up in the war years. And that would have been in Hornpain, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Helen is from Hornpain, lived in Nipigon for a long, long time. But even like me, I have a few memories of the war. They don't ever go away.
No.
They're good memories, but bad memories too. But I mean, there's lots of good things. So she's going to just talk to us a little bit about some of her memories while you're in Hornpain, Helen. You had some stories to tell on that, I know.
Yes, I do. During the war years, the students of the school always had projects to fundraise for the Red Cross. And I was in the Girl Guides at the time. And we made squares. They had to, knitted squares, they had to be a certain size. And after they were made, they were sent away to the Red Cross. And they sewed them together and sent them to the soldiers overseas. And because it was pretty cold in the wintertime there. And
so somebody taught all of you to knit?
well,
Or did most people know how to knit in those days?
as most people knew how to knit those days, but if you have a mother from Europe, you learned how to knit when you were very young.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And then we had trains going through. There was a troop train that would take the soldiers from point A to point B when they were in training. And then the other one was the prisoners of war.
So just one pause for people who don't know that in Hornpain, in those days, no road.
No road.
No road, just the railway, CN line going through. So it was a major transportation for that part of the country.
Yes, and Hornpain had there's only a couple of inside train turntables, and Hornpain had one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And so during the war with the soldiers going through, some of us would go, students and Girl Guides would go down with magazines and chocolates and stuff like that and give it to the soldiers. Of course, a prisoner of war, we couldn't, you know. And one day I was, there was no such thing as lunch at school. We had to go home. So we had an hour and a half, and sometimes we didn't make it that while there. And I was late going back to school that one day, and we had a tank hill, a great big tank hill, and that the railway station was in front of it. So you went up, you know, from the hill. So I was going up the hill because I was late, and a fellow was coming down. And I thought, gee, he looks funny. And I turned around, we scared each other, turned around, and I ran home and told my dad. My dad said, oh, there was a prisoner of war train in. He says, I don't care how late you are, you're going down by the CN station and report it to the police there. So I did, and they caught him. It's a good thing because he wouldn't have lived with all the mosquitoes and no railway and, you know.
Bush like
that. But that was my experience with that. And also during the war, the students were asked to send letters to the soldiers. And we had one neighbor, a thin fella, young fella that grew up next to me, and so I used to write letters to him during the war. And then after how many years ago? 20. My nephew was in the Croatian War, or what?
Don't ask me.
Yeah. He was 22, and he was a peacekeeper. And Philip Medani from Thunder Bay, my sister's second son. And one day he was going through with a fellow soldier to the other side of the town to take engineers. And on his way back, he confronted the 20 Serbs across the road. And they were told never to stop for the Serbs. And so he said to John Tessioni, who was from Toronto, he was with him in the Jeep, that hang on, John. And he gunned the Jeep, and he went through it, and he heard the guns cocking and hitting the Jeep. After it was over, they found 52 or 54 bullet holes in the Jeep. The tires on the passenger side were blown up, and both of them were injured, but thank God not seriously. They went through, and some fellow they have, I don't know what you call them, that they had lookouts, people, soldiers looking out, and they said, oh, there's a couple of drunks in a Jeep driving it. Oh, no, they're injured. And he got to the shortest route to help, and he came through the gate. The gate was opened, and he went through the gate and got out, tried to get out of the Jeep to help John out, and he passed out. And
An experience right in town.
yeah.
Don't even have to be in the war to
No.
have experiences like that.
And then the fellow that was at the gate, he's from Sault Ste. Marie. My son met him, and my son was talking to some veterans about this, and he said, that wouldn't happen to be Philip Badani, eh? And sure enough.
Ah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And so then after that, I was asked to talk to the students at St. Ed's about the war, what I experienced, and the Russians and all that.
Right,
It was
right.
unreal.
Right.
So I told the children about my nephew being over there and what we had to do writing letters. And so Janet Risk decided to get her students to write to Philip.
Oh, okay.
And so, but then he was, New Year's Eve day, he was shot. And so she didn't want to give, and Philip sent back 17 letters to the kids,
Oh, my.
you know, and so when she didn't want to give the letters to the children just in case he didn't make it,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So after that, it was fine. And so after the army flew the Jeep from Croatia, and to Ottawa, and it's in the Peacekeeper section
Oh,
of
okay.
the War Museum.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and my sister, the army sent her then to Ottawa when he was in hospital there.
Right.
And after he recovered and he came home for a little while, he came down to Nipigon and went to visit the school and thank the kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then he spoke to he went out for coffee at the Legion, and he spoke to Rotary.
So when you were mentioning even in school, Red Cross, don't you remember those little Red Cross buttons?
Yeah.
Every year, we had, I don't know what we did, we raised money and then you'd be given a little button to put on your shirt.
Yeah.
And we had, our school, I remember we had Red Cross days when
Yes.
you would do a lot of things to do with the Red Cross
Exactly.
and raise money. But I always remember that little Red Cross button
Yeah.
that you wore, and that showed that you were part of the effort.
Yeah.
For the wartime.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, but the children don't seem to send letters anymore to soldiers, but which is a shame,
Right.
because there's still peacekeepers and there's still war. No matter how
Right.
peaceful it is, it's still war.
And it's not very peaceful in some
No.
places right now, so.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so my sister belongs to the MFRC, it's a Military Family Resource Center. And every year, if you go to Intercity, they have tables there that you can write notes and letters and send them. And the MFRC will send parcels from overseas for the soldiers, and they will send mail.
Right,
And they do a lot of service work.
right.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the warriors. There's been a program on TV, and it's about the foods that made America. And it blows me away that so many foods turned out to be popular because they were good to send overseas to the soldiers.
Yes.
There were certain foods that were developed because they lasted a long time. Soldiers could carry them with them for a long time. And I've been watching, that's fascinating to think that some of those things were developed just because of the wartime.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like that. But,
And soldiers used to carry chocolate bars in their pocket, and they'd
Yeah.
be melting all the time. So now they have more paraffin wax in their
Right.
chocolate because of that.
That's right. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
cereals and cookies and that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my dad worked in McCormick's, and it's interesting that he was a reservist, but he never went to war because the people who worked in McCormick's and made the biscuits were deemed as necessary people because they were making certain products to go to the
Yeah.
soldiers.
Yeah.
So lots of little things. And I mean, for boys, it'd be interesting for them to look back. You see a motorcycle, you need to see the kind they had in the war. That's where it developed.
Yeah.
The wartime developed so many things that, in fact, the Jeep, you mentioned the Jeep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, that would have been a wartime product that
My son, my oldest son, has a 1945 Harley.
Oh,
And he has restored it back into a good shape. And he's got the uniform. And one fellow was at a show of vehicles, and he said, "I've got boots from 1945." And he says, "I think you need them."
oh, nice.
Yeah, so he got it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I look at some programs today and they
Yeah.
relate back to things that were developed
Yeah.
because of the war.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. Okay, that's good. Kristen, thank you. I just wanted to do Helen while you were here.
Oh, I was
Chit
good
chat
friends.
before time.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.